Hello, beautiful people. Ness and I are so happy to be here again with you today. Hello, Ness. How are you feeling on this fine day?
Absolutely wonderful. Hi, everyone.
I bet you're feeling wonderful because you know the secret to being more productive. And I know the secret to being more productive. And that is what we're going to share with you today, my friends. Because here's the thing, people tend to fall into this automatic trap. It's like this subconscious behavior that drives our actions, that drives what we do day to day, which is this. We get busy and we think, we feel, we automatically do more to get through the workload, to feel less busy. We actually take more action. But that is not what needs to happen. Now, we're not suggesting that you need to stop altogether, because obviously you do have to take action. We're not saying, don't be great with your prioritization, your outcome, your tasks, your time management, but it's actually not the secret to feeling less chaotic. If you've been listening to us for a little while, you know that we are here to talk to you as a business owner or as a leader who is feeling a bit chaotic. And let's face it, we're on the run home to the end of the financial year. There's a lot of challenges out there in the market. There's a lot of challenges internally in business all the time. There's negativity we're having to deal with, those crappy news cycles that are constantly in our face. And then we have to show up and be really productive. So doing more will only have you feeling more chaotic. And that's the kind of irony about this. So the secret here is, again, not to do more, but it's actually take a step back and focus on this concept, this theory, this idea of who you're being. Who you're being. Now, who you're being is not as black and white as understanding what am I doing? What action am I taking? It also can come across as a little bit fluffy or a little bit not fast-paced enough. But we want to take a moment today to help explain to you, to show you, first of all, what does this actually mean? Then to be able to identify where you might actually be sitting, how you might be feeling, get some specific clarity around that in terms of being and doing. And of course, what you can do. That sounded a little bit ironic. An action you can take. So let's start with it'll all make sense. Just stick with us. Let's start with getting more of an understanding of this concept of who you're being. Ness, could you share what does that actually mean?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think sometimes people, when I ask that around this whole concept of who you're being, they can look at me really blankly and go, I don't get it. And I think the key here is understanding that it is made up of a whole lot of things that go to really, I guess, determining how you act, your behavior. So things like it's the qualities around your mindset. So do you have a positive mindset or a negative mindset? Are you looking at the bad in things, the good in things? That whole thing around the energy that you bring. So are you turning up enthusiastic and ready to lean in, or are you just dragging your heels and waiting for the next coffee? It's about your attitude, your belief set. So I think about it from the perspective of, living with grumpy teenagers. There's an attitude in the way that people can talk to each other or have conversations, or you can ask somebody to do dishes and pick up after themselves and all those kinds of things. And you can get a real sense of who they're being is somebody who might be ungrateful or might be tired or whatever. And I really think the other layer, and this is why it's probably a hard thing to get your head around, because there's so many layers that are involved in who we're being. Who we're being is fundamentally how we show up in the world, which is linked to directly what are our values. The things that we value in life will determine the attitude that we bring to everything that we do. And so I like to explain it with my clients around it's the attributes. So if you had to list the attributes of an amazing leader that you know, or it could just be somebody who's an awesome human being that you just love being around and that fills your cup. people can talk about that. They can say, oh, look, they're so supportive and they're compassionate and they're friendly and they've got this real positiveness about them. And, they're just determined, and they really, once they commit to something, they see it through. So those kinds of things are really where the attitude comes in, and the qualities or traits that we have as individuals is really then helping us understand this is who we're being. So when things don't go well, who are you being in that moment? Are you being the person that takes it out on the restaurant clerk, the person who's making your coffee? If your coffee isn't made to the way that you like it, are you the one that's yelling at them? Or are you just chill and going, it's okay, dude, you're having a good day? So that's how I like to explain around who you're being. And I trust, Nick, you can do a little addition there if you think it needs any further clarifying, but I trust that resonates.
Yeah, no, I think you did a great job of explaining that. And a couple of things that come to mind as you're saying that is, especially when you're talking about the grumpy teenagers, you can feel it. It's not just what's said. Someone can say yes or they can agree, but you can feel the energy if it's completely different. So as a business owner, as a business leader, it's the same thing. Oftentimes, I can't tell you, and Ness, let me know if it's the same for you, how many times I've heard leaders and business owners say, well, yeah, but my team would never know that I feel like this. Well, you might be good, but you're not that good because you're still a human. Yes, if it's a one-off thing and you're not having a great day, but if this is an ongoing, you're really not focusing on how to create the space to be able to show up in an authentic way, your inside feelings match your outside voice. Yeah, people, team members are like, kids pick up on these things. Team members pick up on these things. There's something that's just a little bit incongruent in terms of what you're saying. So you're probably not as good as you think you are in hiding this and turning it around. Would you agree, Ness? Have you found the same
100%.
thing?
Even the times where, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of hiding how I'm feeling. If somebody knows you well, or even if somebody who doesn't know you well can pick up on a vibe and they say, is everything okay with you? And you go, ooh, maybe that is shining through. Maybe my grumpy face is on the inside, but it's coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeping through.
Or another little trick I know sometimes, put more makeup on, and it will, actually people will put more makeup on to hide their emotions of how they're really feeling, or sometimes when they're hungover. So there you go. There's a little clue. I think the other thing that's really interesting about this is that the action will still happen. So here's the power of knowing who you're being and how that impacts it. I like to use an example of, let's just say you're running late to work and you've got a really important meeting kicking off at the beginning of your workday. Stuff has happened before you've left the house, you're running late and you're really, really frustrated, probably with your outside world, yourself, all of that. Who you're being, you have one of two choices in that moment. You can think about what I need to do to be able to still walk into that meeting, not be so flustered, calm, grounded, maybe, let somebody know you're running late, all of that. Or you can get caught up in the whirlwind of that and you're like a storm coming into that meeting, the flustered, the energy is so different. Like, think about either yourself or another example. The energy can be a whirlwind, or the energy might be, look, I really apologize for being late. Let's get started. That's a really simple way of also looking at who we're being. The meeting's going to happen. The action's going to happen. The thing you're doing is still going to happen, but the impact on the people around you will be different. That's what changes when you're focusing on who you're being. Thoughts on that, Ness?
I love it. It's 100%, that whole, and we have all worked with those people. We have had them as team members.
We've been them. I've been that
actually,
person.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll put my hand up anyway.
Okay. Well, I'll admit to that too. So we know what that is. And it's something that, because it's not, I've always, when I've worked with leaders, they've found it really challenging to call out that behavior, because people often aren't doing anything wrong as such. It's not like they're not meeting their KPIs or they're not getting their job done. It's the attitude that sucks. And so that's a whole nother piece around culture. And so I think that it's naive of us to believe that we've got everything under control when we're masking it, as opposed to taking steps and actions to ensure that we're consciously aware of who we want to be and how we want to show up. and living that. And we're not going to get it right. There are days it is just not going to happen. But the consistency of us as business leaders and, leaders in life turning up. I remember the CEO, interviewed the CEO of Paddy's a number of years ago, and he said, I'm boringly consistent. Nobody has to turn up to work and be tiptoeing on eggshells, wondering what mood I'm in. I thought that was such a great way of describing that style of leadership that just says, I'm here for you, and I will be consistent in the way I present myself, and you never have to guess, am I in a bad mood?
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's so powerful as a leader, isn't it?
Yeah.
To think that the safe environment that you're creating for your people to allow them to be whatever and whoever they need to be in that moment. And I think the other really important thing to mention here is that this is easy for us to talk about, but when you're in the whirlwind of busy, and we're going to give you some categories to see where you identify you are in a moment, when you're in that whirlwind, you don't have the space, the bandwidth to actually stop and go, hang on, how can I change my behavior right now? And you might not even realize that you're doing it. And it could be something really shocking that happens, or feedback that you get that really kind of hurts for you to go, oh gosh, or you get your way to burnout. And we've had conversations in the past and around burnout has different forms: emotional burnout, physical burnout, spiritual burnout. So, this is so important in context of that conversation, because it's also kind of, yes, you can be aware, and there's tools that you can do immediately to shift your perspective. But the better way to do this, it's like what we spoke on the podcast with Susan Hunter. It's like what we've spoken on the podcast with 5 Ways to Practice the Art of Doing Nothing, is to think about what you're doing now is going to impact who you're being in, say, a week's time, in 2 days' time. It takes a little bit, aside from the short-term Band-Aid solutions and tools, which we can go through, but it takes a little while for this to kick in and be the norm. It's like when Mel Robbins says, going to sleep early is a power move. That affects how you wake up. You don't just wake up and go, yeah, I'm going to have a killer morning. That's great. Actually, we rewind 12 hours. What was happening 12 hours ago? It's the same in the sales world. The sales activity we're doing right now, it impacts the results that we get in 60 to 90 days. It's the same concept. It's this, what we do now will affect our future selves. So who do we want to be as our future selves? And we have to start changing those patterns right now.
Powerful stuff. Absolutely. So if we now, I think, you're sort of getting this understanding of who we're being, Nikki, and if we are stuck in that doing and we don't know how to get out, like, how do we identify where we're at?
Good question. That's something I prepared a little earlier to share. So, gosh, good sync. You'd almost think we planned for these episodes, wouldn't you? Okay, so I'm going to share there's 4 key areas that you might resonate with. And they're a mixture of being and doing, because we know the secret to productivity is to not just focus on what you're doing, but that is an important part of it. So as you're listening, do you resonate with this feeling of being stuck? So the feeling of being stuck is you're almost paralyzed by fear or overwhelm, or don't even know where to start. You might feel that business or life, we're a holistic human being. It's not just business. You've got so many responsibilities. It's suffocating to the point that you're not taking action, and you're also not focusing on those aspects of who you're being. That's where you get stuck. So is that you, as you're listening? Think, do I resonate with that? Would you add anything to that one, Ness?
Yeah, I think it can almost feel suffocating. It's that, like, I can't breathe. I don't know which direction to go in. Everything feels heavy.
And I think there's almost this, I don't think, and not almost, there is a element of lack of self-trust. Yeah. Lack of self-trust. So if you resonate with that, that's because you're not focusing on who you're being, and you're not taking action. Yeah. Another common area we see business owners and leaders fall into is they're in a place of being ineffective. So maybe you've listened to some of our podcasts in the past. You are putting into place some strategies. You're attempting to do work-life balance. You're putting in place strategies around mindfulness, and perhaps you're meditating more regularly. You're doing your earthing, or you're looking up at the sky that we talk about, and barefoot grounding. But it feels like you're not making any progress in a productive way in the business. So you still have this feeling of lack of progress. To-do lists are piling up. Anything to add to that one?
I think sometimes people describe it as, I just don't understand why I keep procrastinating.
Yeah.
I've got so much work to do, but for whatever reason, I find other things to fill my time with, and I push it off, and then that pile gets higher and higher. I was talking with a client this week, and she was saying that she actually pulled a pile of work. Let me get this right. She pulled a pile of work, took it. She was working from home. She decided she was going to clear it. She found a piece of paper. We're in 2023 from 2012 in her pile that was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Wow. And it was her realization around, just that avoidance. It's just like there's this huge, big pile of stuff over there, and that it's probably in that overwhelm potentially, or just completely ineffective around systems and structure about how you manage your time. So it was such a relief to her to probably didn't need to follow up. I'm not sure. What's the time frame? 11 years?
What a realization.
Yeah, amazing.
And this is that common place where that to-do list is piling up, and this in effect, what you said there around that logical aspect of systems and processes aren't in place. But the business owner or leader feels like, but I don't understand why I'm not being more productive, because I'm doing the stuff. And you might be doing the stuff like working on or starting to work on mindset, like you're starting the being. So this is where you have some of the being in place, but you're not as effective. You're not doing the important stuff. Okay, now the whirlwind. I think maybe it'd be good to get your thoughts. This might be where we see the most people in the whirlwind. This is where you are in constant motion. You are juggling all the balls. You are absolutely taking a heck of a lot of action. You are go, 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 girl or boy or person. And you are really kind of getting to the end of the day and going, whoa, that was a whirlwind. I feel overwhelmed. I feel like I'm not getting closer to my outcomes. I've done a lot, but I'm not actually making a lot of progress. It's that common hustle. Yeah.
It's and I love the description of whirlwind, because, it feels like you get sucked into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just spins and goes round, 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 and gets faster and faster. And it's hard to break through. And so this really is about, there's just hustle, hustle, hustle. From the minute the alarm goes off in the morning, probably way earlier than you need it to, I remember the phase in life when my kids were little and I was getting up at 5 o'clock just so that I could get ready to get them up, to get ready to get them to childcare, to get to work, it was just crazy, crazy, crazy. Not one moment to yourself and to step back, even to consider who you're being in that. And it's not nice. It's not nice to be living like that. And that's what leads us to burnout, because we don't have that downtime.
And this is also where you go, a good indicator if you're in whirlwind is when you look back and go, hang on a second, it's June already. Where did this year go?
Oh, I feel like I do that anyway.
Maybe you're a little bit in whirlwind. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we will, but that's a good point. We will do that naturally at some point. But there's that extra feeling around it where I have not even had time. I've worked with a leader before who, well, actually not just one, multiple, who've said to me, I don't have time to go to the toilet during the day.
Yeah.
If you are not going to the bathroom, which is a foundational biological need, and you feel like you don't have time to do that because you're doing so much, could be an indicator that you're in whirlwind. If you get to the end of the day and I do not even know what happened.
Or not having lunch or
not having lunch.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so there are the 3 areas: stuck, ineffective, overwhelmed. So whirlwind is where, and you probably guessed this, you're doing a lot, but you haven't been able to bring in this aspect of who you're being. And so the goal, the fourth area, this is where we want you to be. And this area we call momentum. And it's kind of like anything else in life. You might not be in momentum 100% of the time. In fact, you probably won't. So let's set ourselves up for success and throw that expectation out the window. It's about the bounce back. It's about realizing, oh, hang on, I'm stuck. What do I need to do to get out of here to move towards momentum? Or I'm in whirlwind or whatever it might be. And momentum is, you have found this flow. It is such a beautiful place to be. The reason that you've found this flow is because you actually do have this balance of taking action, doing what you need to, as well as who you are being. So you're able to be a bit calmer under pressure, not masking calm under pressure. You're able to take the action that's required to be able to get a good outcome. Whereas when you're in ineffective or whirlwind, you might be taking some action, but it's not the quality action you need. You actually have time and space for downtime, or that could even look like having micro moments. Because remember, we're not saying that you're going to work 9 to 5 every day of your life. When you're at the level that you're at, that ain't reality. You know, we're all about challenging the status quo of what our working hours are for a start. But it might be that there's times where we've got to pull our socks up and put some extra hours in. But we have to make sure that that doesn't become the norm. There's other times where we can have more flexibility and maybe have Friday afternoon off or a couple of early finishes, not early starts. That goes against the grain. So it is about this. Yes, sometimes you'll have to give more. So sometimes momentum could be that you're introducing micro moments, but then you have good boundaries around your lunch break to give your brain the space it needs to just shut down for a little minute, be quiet. What are other examples, Ness, or insights into this place of momentum that we want to be in?
I think you've done a really good job of describing it there. And the key here is it's not about hours and hours and chunks of time, because then we could move all the way back into, you know, stuck or ineffective because we're too busy navel gazing. But to me, it's around having the clear enough boundaries to ensure that you've got some time that's quiet for you to get your head into order, where you focus on what matters to you the most. And that could just be a hard boundary around, I eat my lunch, I go outside, I go for a walk, you know, just things like that. If you have meetings back to back, then it's that, do I need to be there? That's that pushing back, you know, making sure that others who dictate your calendar aren't in a position to stop you from going to the toilet. So there's different ways of achieving it, but I think it's at that point where you go, you're not leaving work feeling exhausted. You actually feel like you've been productive, and on the days that you get thrown that sort of curveball, you can actually deal with the curveball. And knowing it's not going to be forever, knowing the pockets of time where you get really busy, you're just going to have to focus and knuckle down, but then the rewards come later. And for some people, myself included, I can fill a day with anything. But if I know I've got some time off and I've got these deadlines met in half a day, I'm way more productive. So that momentum, that really conscious awareness around how you're spending your time, where are you getting your energy from? And, you know, we always talk with the flavor of behavioral profiling and disc profiling, but am I honoring my natural energy bank and making sure that I am doing the things that I need to do, being the person I need to be to align with who I want to be as a leader, or align with the values of how I want to show up in the world.
And the legacy that we want to not just leave, but live now. This is something else that you and I talk about a lot. And again, it's so connected to this place of who you're being. And I like what you said there as well, Ness. It's this whole curveballs will still come. This isn't about avoiding the reality of that. And life will still be challenging and business will be, but we can handle it so much better. Sometimes it's still hard, but we might just handle it that little bit better. So it'd be interesting to see where you sit and where you resonate with. Are you stuck? Are you ineffective? And again, I love that terminology you said, you know, ineffective. The other thing is around that too much navel gazing without the productivity. Are you stuck in the whirlwind because you've got too much doing and not enough navel gazing or not enough being? Or do you resonate that you're in this place of momentum? And if you are, I want you to take a moment to stop and think, great, what is it that I'm bringing to my life, to my day, that's allowing this space of momentum? Because you won't be there 100%. That's just not how we're wired. But we want to understand and identify our own clues of behavior so that we can be in momentum more than not. And that's what we're going to talk about next to kind of wrap up and finish this, is what are those clues? You know, what are those ways? Because I'm sure some people are thinking, great, this sounds good, but how the heck do I bring being into the place? And there's 3 key areas. I'm going to touch on the first 2, Ness, and then I'll hand over. So if we look at being, there's 2 key areas I want to talk about. One of them is your energy. We've talked about this already today. There's 2 ways to look at energy. It's your energy in terms of how people feel around you, your energy that we can't see and touch and feel, but it affects the world around us, as well as, and it's connected, your energy, how you feel. Are you optimal, or are you leaking in energy because you're so damn tired and you just can't keep doing this, you can't keep getting up, or you're doing it but you're just so robotic? And so we have to look after our energy. Energy is the first key area to consider when you are looking at who you're being. It's basic stuff, people. First question I would ask you is, how's your sleep? Are you getting enough? Is it good quality? And if it's not, what time are you going to bed? What are you doing just before bed? If you're screening, as in watching things on the computer or working, you're activating your brain too much before you go to bed. That could be a real problem. Also, are you hydrating? Are you drinking water? How are you moving your body throughout the day? And the more we move our body in the day, you know, oftentimes the better we sleep. Or are we drinking alcohol before bed? All of these things will impact sleep, hydration, movement. And then the other thing I would add to energy is this active recovery, which is essentially what we've called before the art of doing nothing. So moments of pausing, space, resting the brain. Go back and listen to that podcast if you haven't already, or even if you have. All of these things will help you show up with energy for you and for the people around you. Do we love that, Ness?
Love it so much. Absolutely. All of that matters. I think so many of the themes of our podcast episodes have talked about, you know, managing ourselves and our energy, because we are the most important people really in our businesses and our lives, to ensure that we are fueling ourselves well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say, don't underestimate the simple things. You know, the classics are classics for a reason, because they're what helped us survive to this point. And then the other thing I would add to being, so energy is emotions and mindset. And don't underestimate this. This is connected to energy as well, because it's who we're being, but don't underestimate how you feel, and how you feel will impact your productivity. And it can sound a bit fluffy for some people, but injecting some joy, having some fun at work, doing this with you and your team, you will actually get such better performance. And mindset is around uncovering and knowing what are the beliefs, the subconscious beliefs that could be helping me move forward or holding me back. So there's so many things out there, and Ness listed a whole bunch at the beginning of this podcast step about what we mean by who you're being. But if we had to just really bring it down, well, really, it's 3 things, because it's 3 words. It would be energy, understand your emotions, and your mindset. And they're all so interconnected. When you focus on these 3 things, it will help you move from stuck, ineffective, whirlwind to momentum. And also a quick note on that before we hand over to you to give a top tip for doing, you know, ineffective and whirlwind is actually a better place to be than stuck. So sometimes it's also just, what's one little thing that I can do to move forward if I can't quite reach that place of momentum yet? Okay, so Ness, anything to add, and or what's your top tip for effective doing, not just doing for the sake of it?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, just taking on what you've said, and that really helping our listeners understand, that is the being part, right? That is around how you show up And all of those things will work towards that, your energy levels, your mindset, and the emotions that you're feeling. So the practicality has to come in as well, because we can't expect to achieve peak performance just by getting lots of sleep and eating well and having a positive mindset. We've actually got to do stuff.
That's the ineffective. That's what's happening when we're in ineffective. Yep.
Absolutely. So the prioritization and outcomes is really the key here. Let's get practical. Let's get into what structure do we need in our business for us and our teams in order to thrive, in order to get the best performance out of us whilst we're feeling, in that space where we're able to achieve. And that is having a business strategy. We love the plan on a page. It's the, where am I? We always start with, where is my vision for the business? How does that connect to my personal vision? What's the emotional attachment that I have to get me through tough days? Always about looking at our financial goal and our profitability goal, but also then breaking it down into what are those wildly important goals we need in the next 6 months in order to get there. And then once we have them, looking at the 90-day prioritization, breaking it even down to, as we do and our clients do, that weekly 5 to thrive, that what are the 5 things that move me towards that sort of goal that I want to achieve. So this is where we move away from just having a to-do list that has everything smothered on it, and then we just cross a few things out that are at the top of the list that aren't necessarily the most important things, but they're there. Or we could cherry pick, which I've done in the past.
Yeah.
I think this 1, 2, 3 things is what I feel like. They're the easy things.
Yeah.
And then the hard things kept put back. Yeah. So this is about finding a system or a structure that actually allows you to achieve those really big goals, those big milestones, and doing something little towards them every day in order to be able to stay focused, stay on track, and not get sucked into that whirlpool, that whirlwind of other things. It's like, well, yes, I've been able to move towards where I want to go because I've done this, just this simple thing today, but that allows me to deal with whatever else comes up. So definitely this is the doing, but it's doing it with a focus and having structure around how you're doing it. That's what helps you to be productive. And I think, what's coming up for me as I say that is the number of people, myself included, who have gone off and done time management courses and learned all the things. They don't necessarily work because they don't teach who you're being. They only teach you a tool. That is great, but you've got to have the motivation in order to be able to follow that tool. So for here, when we work with our clients on this, a lot of this is around their accountability and their responsibility for ensuring that they do what they say they're going to do and carry through with what they've promised themselves mostly, plus their team or their customers along the way. So this is a key action. It's not just ticking things off a list. It's actually creating a focus list that is going to move you towards achieving those goals, and you don't lose sight of them because you're constantly coming back and referring to it and checking back in and making sure that you're on the right path.
So a big thing I'm hearing in that, Ness, is it's with intention. It's no longer just this scattergun, what looks easiest. Our brains were kind of designed to be lazy in a way. We're always looking, our brain is always looking for the shortcut. What's the quickest way to get the best result? So if we see something that's easy, of course we're going to do it. Like, it's not a malfunction. Malfunction? Yeah. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
But this is about the intention of 100%. Everything that we're doing.
Love it.
I think the other thing on that is listening to who we're being, listening to our body, our energy, knowing what our outcomes are. It also allows us to be more fluid in the moment. So bringing this balance, we often talk about the masculine and the feminine energy. Yes, we have to follow a structure and a process, but some days, I just had this week. I was working on a sales process for a client, and I was like, right, I've got to have it done by 6 p.m. or something, during the week. And I was not feeling it. I was not in that space at all. And so, procrastinated, did some other stuff. But then I woke up the next morning and I was like, boom, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Now, because I didn't put myself under too much pressure, and it was a flexible deadline, it was a deadline I'd given myself, instead of just sitting at the computer and pushing through, I allowed myself to kind of enjoy a little bit of procrastination or focusing on other things. And then in the morning, I whizzed through it, and I really was so productive, because I had the flexibility. So sometimes I appreciate it's not always the case, but when you do, listen to yourself, because you'll be more productive when you're in the right headspace. And that's the kind of gift that this can give you. So Ness, we always, go.
Well, I was going to say, that's coming back to being in flow, which is momentum, right?
Yeah,
totally.
And I think sometimes quieten down that little logic brain that says, no, you have to do this now. You should, because of whatever reason. Yeah.
So you're about to wrap up, aren't you? You're about to give our listeners their one actionable action to do in the next 24 hours. So I'm going to throw it straight back to you, and can't wait to hear what you got to say.
Amazing. So look, I think we keep it pretty simple today. This is, for some people, this is going to be a big concept to wrap your head around. For others, you're already in that space and practicing it. All we want you to do today is to reflect on the concepts, the attributes, the characteristics we mentioned around being, and the actions around doing. First question I want to ask you is, where do you resonate that you're actually doing quite well? And acknowledge that. And then also, what was your gap? Was it in being, or was it in intentional doing? And we just want you to, if it's in being, think of one thing that you will focus on in the next 24 hours. Is it energy? Will it be going to bed at a really good time and focusing on getting a good night's sleep tonight? Will it be drinking that X amount of liters of water? I say X because it's all contradictory everywhere. Whatever that is for you, drinking lots of water in the next 24 hours to hydrate, or maybe going for that walk that you've been putting off. Uncovering, maybe talking to someone about a belief, just one thing in terms of who you're being. Or if it was the prioritization piece, then think about what Ness said. Do you need to revisit your top 3s for the next week? Pick an action for yourself. This is kind of a choose your own adventure based on when you heard us talking about being and intentional doing. Where did your mind go in terms of that feeling of, ooh, I don't do that. I don't do that very well. That's it. Anything else to build on that? Or do you think that's a good action for people to take?
I think that's fabulous. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap up today. So thank you everyone for listening. As always, go and enjoy your day, and we can't wait to talk to you again soon.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.